few more minutes. I'll wait for a little bit. Like a couple more minutes. Maybe. Alright. Just gonna let the last few people walk in. Oh, the fall. Oh, okay. It's just. Sure. Can you hear me? Is this working? Awesome. Okay. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming to see mine and Kristen's talk this afternoon. We're really excited to present to you all the work we've done over the past couple years and just show you, we're really excited to celebrate this project's end and all the work that we accomplished. So let's get into it. Let's see. I got it right. Oh. Here we go. Yes, okay. Perfect. So that's me, because we are going to the Jurassic specifically, so we are going to be going into this era right there. So this project was named Jurassic Giants. It's specialized on the care and preparation of sauropods from the Jurassic. So I thought that would be an apt gift for this. And this is what the planet looks like in this era. And that little, can I do it? Yes. This little red star right there, that is Colorado in the Jurassic period. And specifically, we're going to zoom in all the way, not just into the Jurassic, but into this specific formation called the Morrison Formation. And the Morrison Formation is a package of sediments, and it is made of sandstone, mudstone, siltstone, and limestone. And these have some of the most iconic dinosaurs that we can think of, especially here in Colorado. It has Stegosaurus, Diplodocus, Brachiosaurus, all of your favorite supersized guys come from the Morrison. Dinosaur Ridge, who doesn't love Dinosaur Ridge, right? That's also something really cool that's come out of the Jurassic period. And now Denver has a very deep history with the Morrison Formation. This photo is from the spring of 1916. And what you're seeing here is the excavation of what is named, or nicknamed, the Deweese Diplodocus. It is a Diplodocus that was found in the fall of 1915 by Dallas Deweese and his wife near Canyon City. And this was Denver Museum's first ever dinosaur brought into our collection. And so I've been able to work with this specimen, get it housed and kind of rehabilitated, and it's been a really awesome project. Another pretty famous specimen that we've brought out of the Morrison is our Stegosaurus. Here you can see it getting flown out by helicopter in August of 1992. And there's just the beautiful skull that came out of that specimen because it's really nice. So you might be wondering why you're here and what even the Jurassic Giants project was. It consumed my life for the past 2 years, but I realize not everyone probably knows what I'm talking about. So it was a IMLS funded project and US Forest Service project that focused on these 3 field localities that kind of span the American West. And we basically had to prep, house, and also 3D surface scan a lot of dinosaur bones that came from these 3 different quarries. And so phase 1 was really our prep and housing and stabilization phase of this project. That was the first year of this project, was just getting everything prepped out and sort of what are we looking at here. So we're going to start in Casey, Wyoming. That is the first quarry that we really had to fully prep out. This had almost 660 sauropod bones, and about 5 individuals we think came from this quarry. The material in this quarry was donated by these 2 dudes right here, Chris and Dave. They are hobby collectors, and they've been collecting in the Morrison Formation, I don't know, probably longer than I've even been alive, to be honest. They're really, really into the sauropods, which I love. It's so great. So thanks to them, I was able to work on this project. And this is us in the, oh my goodness, I think fall of 2023 when I first started working here. And here we have you can see some bones that we were exposing here, and Natalie and I think are uncovering a little cervical and trying to get it out of the ground to prep. So that was a really cool experience to get to go out and do some digging. This was just a really cool thing also that was non-sauropod, a theropod tooth. I feel like people always enjoy seeing some cool sharp teeth. And as you can see, as you can imagine, the bones were pretty supersized. They were big. All the femurs were about my size and probably longer than I am, to be honest. And there's another giant upside down cervical in the background getting glued as well. That thing is also a really cool sauropod vert. So I was really proud of all the work we accomplished in this phase of the project. We prepped out over 220 sauropod bones in the first year, which was a huge lift from our prep volunteers and my prep team. It was awesome. We prepped out 100% of the field jackets in the first year, which was 128. And it's not like field jackets only have one bone. Sometimes they had 5 or 6. So it was just an insane amount, a huge volume of bone that we were able to prep out from this quarry in the first year. So that was really exciting. Our next field locality is that historic specimen I mentioned at the top of the presentation. It is from Canyon City. It has over 100 bones, and it is just one individual, one Diplodocus. And here is former intern and former Teen Rex preparator, Alex, demonstrating how giant that femur is. It's pretty awesome. All the specimens from this quarry were already prepped out. We just had to house them in some really nice stable archival cradles and just add some little love and care. Sometimes they were a little bit crumbly and dry in there. Our last quarry that we worked out of was a quarry on Forest Service land in Comanche National Grasslands. This one was also a huge lift. This one had 750 bones and about 3 individuals. And those were super sized. I think these are the biggest bones that we had in this entire project. This is one shoulder blade of what we think is like an Apatosaurus potentially. And here former interns Maddie and Joseph are showing you just how giant these bones get. Because, I mean, your own shoulder blade is so tiny. This one is about 8 feet. And we have both of them, which is super awesome. This is one of our favorite bones. It's a giant rib, one rib, and it's huge, right? It's like my size. It's pretty big, and it's even a little bit bigger than I am. So this quarry had like the most supersized bones of anything that I had to work with. So it posed quite a challenge, as you can imagine, when it came to scanning fossils, which I'll cover a little bit in this section. What a perfect segue. Phase 2. So phase 2 happened once we were done prepping, and it was time to just focus on digitally capturing all of these fossils. And we did that with these really cool gadgets right here, the Arctic Leo and the Arctic Space Spider. And these are surface scanners. And so they use structured light. And so as you can see here, this little object right here is shooting out a grid of light against this vase. And that grid is going to register the contours and all the different shapes that it's seeing. And that's how it's able to basically take like a really cool 3D picture of all the fossils. And here you can see one of my former volunteers, Sam. She is surface scanning this really awesome cervical that you can see here. That is actually from the Deweese Diplodocus. So it's a really cool historic specimen that is now online for people to see, and you can flip it through the air. It is super cool. I'll show you guys what that looks like. This is Bryce and Alex helping me flip these fossils from the Comanche site, Last Chance. These things all weighed about at least 100 pounds usually, if not more. And when you're scanning fossils, you have to flip them around to get all the different angles. And so that posed quite a challenge with these giant supersized fossils that we couldn't really figure out how to just flip without a structure. And so we developed these really tiny, kind of scary honestly at times, little scanning jackets where they cover just enough to like not let the bone fall apart, but it leaves a lot exposed, so we're able to capture as much of the fossil as possible, which is crucial when you're creating a 3D model. So that was a really cool learning process in this project, was managing these giant fossils and developing this really cool safe system to capture them in 3D. We also use the spider, and the spider's for stuff that's about maybe the size of your arm, if not smaller. And so that's also a really cool tool in our arsenal, because not everything was big. This is a little caudal, a tailbone from a sauropod that is also from Comanche National Grassland. So we have all these really cool gadgets. Here's former intern Kaylee processing, because once you get the data, it's not done yet. It looks like this when you put it into our program. And what you have to do is go through and delete all this background noise, all the feet, all the sand, edit each one to where all you have left is the fossil, and then you're able to smash them all together in this really cool software, and then it produces hopefully this will work, Yes, so this is just a screen recording of one of the fossils that we created, and it's really cool because these things are delicate, heavy, really important, and so now that we've pretty much captured almost every single bone that we needed to, they can now just be safely manipulated. They can be shared online, they can be shared with the public. Another really proud accomplishment is that we have had over 3,500 page views since last May, which is super awesome to see that people love the sauropods, and it's a lot of work with all of our volunteers, so it's awesome to see that paying off. And then we also ended up with a grand total of 541 specimens on this page. There are a few more to come, but still, that was a really awesome number to hit. I thought we'd hit maybe 400 in early days, we were kind of estimating. So to see 541 in about a little over a year and a half, it was just like a huge, it was awesome to just see all of that work kind of end up online. And yep, this page, it is QR code if you're interested. If not, after the talk, I can always show you how to get there. And all of these, you're able to download them, you're able to look at them, you're able to study all of these really cool fossils from like the comfort of your home. It's awesome. Educators can use it, anyone can download this stuff, and it's not just us. A lot of museums are switching to this Morphosaurus page where you're able to just have really cool insight into collections that you don't normally get to see. So we're really excited about the access that this has given people to our collection. And another really cool benefit of this project is that it's kind of spawned and helped out Julian Hernandez. He is a PhD student at the University of Wyoming, and he has told me multiple times how helpful it is to have all this stuff online, so he doesn't have to drive down to Denver every single time he wants to look at a specific fossil. He can just look it up, and both good and bad, he's told me he can look at these whenever he wants. He's been up till 3 a.m. sometimes just creeping around. He says it's kind of a blessing and a huge curse at the same time to have unfettered access to our fossils. But it's great, it's awesome. It's really adding to the outreach, and here he is presenting on that research at SVP last year, where he was able to talk about the benefits of sort of being able to have this digital access to our collections. And there I am also at SVP last year. I presented on this at AMP, and SVP most recently did a poster at SVP just talking about the huge lift that we've had to do to get this project going. And now that I'm kind of done in my section, I'm going to pass it off to Kristen so she can talk about the last phase of this project.
Okay, so I'm Kristen MacKenzie, and I'm the Earth Sciences Collections Manager.
Did you turn it on?
I thought I turned it on. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Hi, I'm Kristen MacKenzie, and I'm the Collections Manager for Earth Sciences. This is the first time I've had to get up on the stage, so my heart's pounding. So this, one thing that we didn't mention yet is Natalie Toth had to take over as PI for this project. This is something that Joe Sertich and Natalie and I were cooking up in the COVID times. And we were really thinking about, how can we make sauropods accessible? They are the worst to deal with if you're physically trying to move them around. That femur that Evan kept showing it takes 3 people to move that thing. So it's not the best for it to keep flipping it and using it. So when I came here in March 2 of 2015, and Joe told me, one of your jobs on this grant is to move the entire collections. I'm like, oh, great, okay. And this is one of the things I saw. And so this picture was taken in 2013, looked the same in 2015. This is actually in the old bone room, which is right over there. And this, let's see if I can do the pointer. So this is actually Deweese diplodocus right here. And then there's some Hell Creek back in there. But I was freaked out when I saw this stuff because you have just these things rolling around, and every time the range moves back and forth, you've got these things traveling and bumping into each other. We don't show the worst pictures of how our collections used to be stored. Sometimes they were stacked like cordwood, and that was awful. So it really freaked me out. So here's some of the things that this is one of the reasons the Avenir Collection Center was actually built, is so that all our collections that were at huge risk of overcrowding and incorrect storage could now be stored correctly downstairs. And so ever since we all moved in, I think our move ended the year that we got back from COVID, which I can't even remember what year that was. Took us 6 years to move our sciences collections from about 12 different rooms down at the Avenir. But here's some of here is some of the scary stuff where you had just bones stacked in boxes. Nothing's marked, nothing's identified, cataloged or housed correctly. Here's one of those big sauropods that Evan kept showing. It was actually cracked, and a lot of this stuff was held together by plaster way back when, and that stuff just degrades and dries out and cracks every time you move it. And then I think that's the pubis, right? The pubis? Ilium. These things were in these really kind of like eggshell thin, cruddy old, I don't even know if it was real fiberglass, but basically these expedient little cradles that were really insufficient. And then even though this is some Miocene stuff over here, you see this bottom shelf where things are just sitting with no protection whatsoever. And gosh dang it, I'm sorry guys. This thing, the prep lab has since corrected all the archival cradles on those, so pretty cool. But this is the nightmare that I saw when I got here. And this is one of the reasons that we are taking, the next 10 years is really rehabbing the collections project by project. And every time a curator gets a project, we try to build in a little bit of, okay, let's correct some of the stuff that went wrong in the past or needs to be housed correctly, stuff like that. But here's what it looks like now. It's so nice. I can't believe it. So on this side, you've got Deweese diplodocus right here. There's a last chance sauropod right there in that historic picture she just showed you. But everything is nicely cradled now with these tops. Everything is inventoried, so I know exactly what is on what shelf. And for me as a collections manager, that is absolutely critical. And even though we have 1.25 million objects in our Earth Sciences different collections, very little of that is actually inventoried down to a drawer or a shelf. And so that's the struggle. Every time you have people coming in and they give you this big list of 100 things they want to see that week or that day, you're like, okay, I gotta find them. So having this all 900 some bones inventoried, cataloged, and in collections, and I know exactly where they are, and it's all protected now, and nobody's gonna roll those bones over again. It just really makes me feel good. So, Evan, you did an amazing job. Here is the Camarasaurus quarry. This is an old, very old quarry. Was this Canyons or Comanche grasslands? I can't remember. But these bones were in sad shape. I mean, there's tinfoil holding some of it together, sticks driven through the bones, but now it looks gorgeous. So Kaylee Heinhold was our intern on this. She was here for 16 weeks, but previous to that, she had been volunteering for Evan for over a year, I think, over 2 years, volunteering, doing those meshes and processing them and then getting them ready for the upload into Morphosaurs. So she already hit the ground running, and we couldn't have found a better person for it. So in 16 weeks, she cataloged, uploaded, rehoused, and inventoried 956 Morrison specimens out of those quarries that Evan mentioned. That's 958 decisions that she has to make constantly. Every day is a set of, okay, how should I house this? How does it need to be cataloged? And on and on. So it's not like a easy thing that gets done. So just kind of I know a couple of you have come down to our Meet Our Museum Week, where we kind of take you through what cataloging is really like and why it is kind of the backbone of collections downstairs. But each one's, sorry. That's awful, okay. So every single specimen that is cataloged has 103 data fields that must be input into a spreadsheet. 103. That's at bare minimum, if we're lucky. So a lot of this work gets done when somebody like a curator goes out, they collect the stuff, they turn in a field inventory to me, and that field inventory tells me every single place that they picked up a specimen, gives me the coordinates, and then we have to figure out land ownership, which they usually know, and just a whole host of things that then Nicole Nuyegel and myself have to catalog every year at the end of the summer. So everybody turns them in. We're processing localities like mad, that goes to Megan, that's an accession. And so some of this work, like the locality records, one catalog record has 19 required fields, one locality record has 39, one accession has 14 fields, one permit, 19 fields, and a parties record, which is a person that collected it, or the curator, or whatever it might be, is 12 fields. So that's actually, if you times that by 958, I should have done the math, but that's a lot of decisions that Kaylee has to make and learn how to make as she goes along. So I thought she did just a heck of a job in 16 weeks. It was crazy. And one of the things that she did is make tons and tons of these foam homes. They're called cavity mounts, but we have just kind of fondly referred to them as foam homes. And the reason why I do that is, if you remember that picture where all those little round, sort of like bobbins of the centrums of the vertebra were all lined up, a lot of them should have had projections on the top, the neurocrest, side projections, all sorts of little pokey outy things. Well, if you still have them and you need to preserve them, and you don't want those to roll around, every single time you open that drawer, you put them in these little cavity mounts. But those are pretty time consuming to make. So she and Mike Richardson, which is right there, and Cynthia, I don't know if you're in here, but they just made them by the dozens over the last few years. In this Ponderosa quarry, we ended up getting bits and pieces of that over the last 3 years. So we were able to kind of get a jump on the curation process by just plain old, let's start cradling. And then along with all the beautiful stuff that you see on the shelves, we have several cabinets out there full of all the bits and pieces that go along with the big stuff, things that don't fit on, or even some of the smaller species that were found. I can't remember if this one had allosaur in it or not. But every single thing is cataloged or inventoried down to the range, the cabinet, the side, and the drawer. So this makes it really accessible for us now. And with that, I just want to say thanks. Thanks to Natalie for being the PI. Cynthia and Mike, they are our foam homers extraordinaires, among other things. Evan really carried this grant, so I want to say thank you. You're just amazing. Kaylee, and then Mo. Mo is always our unsung hero on our teams, where she is helping us get the internships, helping us run the internships, and then I think you have a slide that shows how many internships, which is crazy. So you want me to just pop through that?
Yeah.
Here you go.
Yeah, so this is just an acknowledgement slide that I constantly keep adding to, because this is not just like a one-person project, this is like a 1,000-person project. It takes a village. And so yeah, this is just a really cool visual showing of all the people that have worked with me, not just obviously Kristen, Nicole, Natalie, but also I had a whole team of specific 3D scanning and processing volunteers, USFS interns. All of our interns have always been able to help on this project, which has been amazing. Natalie, Salvador, Sadie, Alex, everyone has just been so helpful in getting this project to the finish line, because it's a huge lift. And obviously we want to acknowledge our funding sources, the Forest Service, IMLS, and our external partners, Chris Weegee, Dave Schmoody, and Bruce Schumacher at the Forest Service. And with that, we will take any questions if there are any. Thank you.
That was a great overview of collection acquisition to storage. So what questions are out there?
I wonder if you could talk a little bit about the Comanche site and where that is and sort of how that ties in. I assume that's Morrison down there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is. So that was, you see Bruce back there. Yeah, he worked on that stuff back in the early 2000s. And so we are able to now house that, and that's how we sort of started working on it through our collaboration with Bruce. I'm not exactly sure where it is. I just know that it's in Comanche National Grasslands, and it is It's very abundant, a lot of really cool stuff, a lot of really big stuff, a lot of sometimes broken up stuff by the elements because it's really, some stuff gets really weathered. But yeah, thanks to our collaboration with Bruce, we're able to obtain, there's another site from Comanche as well, so it's the Last Chance Quarry is the biggest one. We have another one called Riverview, which is a lot smaller but has a really cool enigmatic sauropod that we're hoping to get some really cool eyes on and see what's going on there. If that answers your question.
Other questions?
If it comes up and I can answer.
Hello. That was awesome. I was kind of curious. What initially kicked off this whole project? Like, when did you guys? At what point did you guys take a look at this thing and go like, all right, we gotta do something about this? And what was the whole process like of just getting everything in place to be able to do that?
Well, the initial conversations were about in 2022, and I like to think it was us trying to pre-plan and decide how these fossils were going to be used. And it's just impossible to use how they were. They were broken up, nothing was together, and you just can't physically move them enough to do the science on them. So we talked about how to do this, and then we have the Morrison in general is highly visited by outsiders and people from all over the country. And then, one day Jim Kirkland came through and said something about the brokenness of one specimen, and I'm just like, oh my God, this is so embarrassing. So when you get those famous people coming through and they're just like, you need to do something about that, you know that you gotta fix it. So you just look for the money that's out there, what kind and what categories you can fill, and how you can grow that extended specimen record. Like, what else can we do besides catalog it and put it in the collections? Well, that's where we evolved the idea of the 3D scanning, and it's a huge hit, and it's already gotten lots of downloads, and I hope that, the more times that people like Jillian will present this at conferences, the more this is going to pick up steam, and I'm hoping that this really gets dozens of visitors in the next 5 to 10 years. And I think it will, just because of the new stuff that's in there. So hopefully that answered it.
Ready.
Thank you so much for the presentation. I'm curious about the amount of the technology that was used. How much experience had you had with it before? How much training and kind of stuff were you able to work with that before? Because I think our audiences are definitely growing in interest with the processes that are used, and I wonder if you might be able to speak to that a little bit. And also, is it a pass through of whenever people do download this kind of like marks us up or gets us in a better spot to get more funding in the future?
Yeah, I love that question. So actually, I had never touched a scanner. I had never processed a scan in my life when I started, which was really exciting for me. I was really excited to get a new skill because you could see kind of that was sort of the trend of the future, right? Things were going to start kind of moving a little bit digitally into digital collections. And so, yeah, no, I was able to have some training when I started a couple years ago. But it was also pretty new to the museum even when I started. I think they'd only been trained maybe a few months before I started, and so we were all kind of learning together. And I think what was really cool for me as like a skill expansion sort of thing is that I kind of a lot of times did learn on the job like how to navigate certain issues I was having, because it's not always the easiest. They break. They don't sometimes like to be in certain weird positions. And so learning how to like properly stabilize them, how to properly hold them in the weird spots I need them to, different techniques for actually successfully capturing scans, learning how many to do. When I started, I would only do 2 per fossil, and then I quickly learned that was not always possible. And so I quickly learned, okay, I had to do 4 for certain elements, 2 for some, 3 for some. And so it was really kind of like on the job as I went, because I don't think that there's a lot of training that could have prepared me for the problems I encountered anyway. That is why we also did those like really tiny special cradles to scan, because we knew we had to flip them we cannot flip them without a structural support, but it was tricky because I needed as much of the fossil as possible exposed so that I could actually get the scans to mesh properly. And so yeah, a lot of it was help with my lab team and our digital research team and sort of collaborating on how do we safely scan these, because we don't want to break them, obviously. Like, the goal is to do it safely. So yeah, in short, it was a lot of, on the job, sort of as you went encountering problems, problem solving on the go.
So the 3D scan you showed looked kind of smushed.
Yep, that is it's very flat.
So is there a canonical way to de-smush them after you've scanned them?
I'm sure there is. I'm sure there's so many programs out there. I'm sure you could use any sort of software. We just kept them as they are. But I'm sure there's probably some software out there that you could use to sort of maybe reinflate it, because a lot of them are smashed or slanted. And I think that's an interesting thing to look at, is maybe like taphonomy, right? Like how it kind of changes, how it was preserved. But yeah, I'm sure you could somewhere out there figure that out.
Other questions? Well, let's think. Oh, what? No. Okay.
Oh, no, Dave.
No.
Dave wants to stop us.
You had to think about it.
Time, right?
Oh, yeah.
A great presentation. It's just, I've been watching this from afar for 2 years and seeing you lug sauropod bones and scan them and everything else. It's just wonderful to see it come to fruition. My question is about the scanning and making them available. You said basically it is open access. Anybody can download these things, and but even so, on your slide it said restricted download. And I know from Morphosource that you can do all levels of restriction and so on and so forth. But if it's truly open access, do you have concerns about people downloading and printing out your sauropods at quarter size or whatever else and making tons of money off of it? Or, I mean, there's all kinds of scenarios.
Absolutely.
Do you have concerns about that?
I do. I mean, it's hard, right? Like, Morphosource is like, you're not allowed to sell this. Like, no. But like, they could, right? And I don't know what we can do besides putting it on Morphosource in like a good faith effort to hopefully make it accessible to people who want it for research and not for financial gain. The restricted download, all it really means is you have to fill out like, why do you want this? And most of them are open, so open download, which means it's an optional field. You don't have to tell us why you're going to take them. We just have to hope, I guess, that you're not going to make money off of this. It is a fear I have, but it's also, there's only so much we can do from afar, right? Besides like actively reaching out to every person, being like, why do you want this? What are you doing? Tracking every single move that they make. I think that's one of the issues with having all these collections out there, is like every museum is probably facing the same issue, and maybe the restricted download is a way to sort of combat that a little bit. But even then, if they want it for commercial use, they can just fill it out and say, this is just for me, it's not for sale, and they can do it. And I hope that I think this is still pretty new, so hopefully as kind of time goes on, we're able to put up different safeguards and sort of learn how to combat the like sort of commercialization of our specimens that are meant for science and not for profit.
All right, other questions? Let's thank our speakers.